The film kicks off on the open seas off the coast of Los Angeles, with two young guys on a boat. Out of nowhere, American police showed up by air, telling the two guys to pull their boat over. It turned out these guys were Filipino terrorists who had entered American waters illegally. Not wanting to get caught, they decided to blow up the nuclear bomb they had on board. It was a dirty bomb, a radiological weapon that combines radioactive material with conventional explosives. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, life was business as usual for the Ross family. Jenna Ross was at her beautiful home, talking to her daughter, Claire. The house was a luxurious, cozy escape from the world, a place of peace that would soon be tested. Claire was practically glowing with excitement, showing her mom the perfect dress she had picked out for a date. Jenna watched her, feeling that bittersweet mix of pride and a little sadness, knowing that her daughter was all grown up and would soon be heading off to college. Their peaceful moment was shattered when an emergency alert blared on Jenna's phone. It was a call from her sister, Evie, telling her about the nuclear explosion off the coast of LA. She sounded so panicked, and that made Jenna worried. At the same time, Jenna's husband, Ian Ross, was glued to the TV, his face a mask of concern as the news broke about a catastrophic event. It was a nuclear explosion, and they all instantly realized that their comfortable lives had just ended. At the same time, we were introduced to the Erickson family. Jeff Erickson, a former Special Forces soldier, the Green Beret, was going about his chaotic morning with his wife, Tara, and their three kids, Georgie, Abe, and Leaf. It was painfully obvious that things were tense between Jeff and his oldest son, Abe. Jeff had totally spaced on an important school event for Abe, and the resentment was hanging heavy in the air. After everyone had left, a wave of anxiety washed over Jeff as he saw the news about the nuclear incident. He then saw a picture his daughter, Georgie, had just drawn, and it pictured the exact same thing that happened in the news. His world went sideways in an instant. He knew he had to get to his family, and fast. He jumped into his truck and floored it to catch up with Tara, who was on her way to drop the kids off at school. Luckily, he got to them just in the nick of time. He pulled alongside the car, his face a mix of determination and pure concern, and told his family about the nuclear bomb. From that moment on, their lives were never going to be the same. He then told his family they would be heading to the Ross family's house, which was also a homestead. Before heading to the Ross family's homestead, the Erickson family rushed back home to pack some essentials. The atmosphere was a mix of frantic energy and terrified calm. Jeff, with a look of grim determination on his face, quickly began packing up some of his old military gear and weapons. Seeing him do this, Tara asked why they had to go to the Rosses and couldn't just get protection from the government. She was trying to wrap her head around the situation, but it felt impossible. Jeff explained that he had tried calling every single one of his old contacts in the military, but not one of them was answering. It was a clear sign that things were way worse than they looked. He told them to follow his instructions without hesitation because they were in a seriously dangerous situation. Meanwhile, back in the city, total chaos was going down. The streets were packed with people, all of them scrambling and fighting over basic necessities. It was a complete free-for-all. People were stampeding into a grocery store, fighting over every last bit of food and water on the shelves. Things were so bad that some people were even fighting each other. The military, who was already on the scene, had to step in to stop the fighting. After a long, terrifying drive, the Erickson family finally made it to the Ross's homestead. The Ross family greeted them warmly, and everyone was so relieved to see each other. Elsewhere, Evie was still driving with her three children, along with their pet dog, heading to Ross family's homestead. They were low on gas and pulled up to a gas station that was a total zoo. A bunch of people were fighting over the last bit of fuel, and when Evie tried to get some, they told her to get lost. Seeing how crazy things were, with people fighting over gas, Evie decided to steal a car and immediately get back on the road. It was clear that they were on their own. She floored it and kept going toward the Rosses. The scene shifted to another family who was doing their best to get by after the incident. They were a family of 5, consisting of the father, Rick Baumgartner, his wife, Marta, and their 3 children. They were having a sad, quiet dinner with their house in complete darkness because of the power outage. Suddenly, Rick heard a gunshot from his neighbor's house, which was being invaded by a group of looters. Right then and there, he knew he had to get his family out of there before the looters came after them. He decided to go to Ross's homestead as well for protection and shelter. Back at the Ross family's homestead, Ian was doing his regular check on the weapons room when he got a total shocker. His assistant, Christian, had brought a government official named Masterson along with him. Masterson said that a lot of people were complaining that Ian was letting a bunch of outsiders stay at his homestead. He then threatened to have Ian arrested because he didn't have a permit to turn his home into a homestead. Masterson then had the audacity to ask for all of Ian's ammo and weapons as payment to keep his mouth shut. Ian, of course, immediately refused, telling him that this was his private property and that the government had no right to tell him what to do. Furious, Ian kicked Masterson out of his home. The next day, as Jeff was patrolling the perimeter, he stumbled upon a chilling sight. One of the Ross's warehouses had been completely burned to the ground. He immediately ran back and reported what he had found to Ian. Ian knew right away that this was a threat from Masterson for refusing his demands. To make sure nothing else happened, Ian asked Jeff to lead a training session and patrol with the military to protect their homestead from any more threats.
One down.
How many of them can die without crushing this place?
How do you win?
After days of traveling, the Rick Baumgartner family finally arrived at the Ross homestead. They were exhausted, but their hope was reignited when they saw the safe haven. They weren't alone either. A bunch of other people had also made it to the gate, their faces filled with a desperate mix of hope and fear. At the gate, Rick pleaded with Ian to let his family find temporary shelter. At first, Ian was ready to open the gate and let them in, wanting to help as many people as he could. But Jeff, on the other hand, was totally against the idea. He argued that they were already a target because of Masterson, and taking in more people would just put them all in grave danger. Rick, hearing this, was heartbroken and disappointed that Ian wasn't going to let them in. Even though Ian couldn't let the refugees inside, he and the others gave them a bunch of food and other supplies to help them survive. The next day, Abe went to his parents to ask for permission to join the patrol team, which was led by his dad. Tara was completely against it. She was worried sick about her son, telling him he had only ever hunted deer and was not ready for a real battlefield. But Jeff tried his best to convince his wife that their son would be okay. The next day, Abe started his first shift, patrolling with another soldier on a hill. As they were keeping a lookout, Abe spotted two hunters illegally entering the Ross's property. They immediately tried to warn them using their loudspeaker, but it wasn't working, and the hunters couldn't hear their warning. They kept pointing their rifles in Abe's direction. Panicked, Abe radioed his dad for instructions. Jeff told Abe to fire a warning shot to get the hunters' attention, but Abe was so nervous that his hands started shaking, and he accidentally shot one of the hunters. The other hunter immediately ran away. The hunter who was shot was immediately rushed to the on-site clinic, but it was too late. He was in critical condition and had lost too much blood. The doctor did everything he could, but the man didn't make it. Abe immediately broke down crying, consumed by guilt. He couldn't believe he had just killed an innocent person. The doctors who had worked on the hunter were furious, angry that the situation had turned into a bloody battlefield. A few days went by, and things at the camp weren't getting any better. Ian and the others were doing their best to make sure the food supply was enough to feed everyone. Abe, on the other hand, had become a lot more quiet and withdrawn, clearly shaken by the incident. Meanwhile, Jeff was still in the middle of a training session with the other soldiers. During a break, Jeff talked with a few of his old military buddies, Bing and Evan. Bing told Jeff that he needed to take over command from Ian because he had more military experience. On the other hand, Evan told Jeff to follow his own instincts and not to get caught up in things that could come back to haunt him. At the same time, Ian was telling his wife, Jenna, that their food supply was running dangerously low, and that if they didn't find a solution soon, everyone would be starving by the time winter came. Suddenly, they got a report that Evie's family had finally arrived at the homestead. Ian and Jenna immediately went to welcome them. Jenna was so relieved to see her sister and her kids were all safe and sound. Later that night, Abe went to Claire's room to talk about the shooting. Claire could see how much pain he was in and tried her best to cheer him up. She told him about how she had gotten a heart transplant when she was just 11 years old. She had a heart condition and needed to have surgery as soon as possible. Luckily, she found a donor, which gave her a second chance at life. Since then, she's been trying to take care of herself to honor the person who saved her life. Claire also took Abe to her garden, where she had been growing flowers. Thanks to Claire's kindness, Abe finally felt a lot better. A few days later, Jenna took Ian down to a makeshift kitchen she had put together with the help of Tara. She had been busy trying to figure out a solution to their food supply problem. With her botany skills, she had developed a special device that made it easier for them to quickly produce grain, no matter the season. She also had help from Claire's school friends, who were helping to cook for all the refugees. Just as they were getting organized, Evie's husband finally made it to the homestead. He had been separated from his family ever since the incident happened. When Evie and her children saw him, they were all so happy and relieved that they were finally reunited. After a warm reunion, Evie's husband told Ian and Jeff that he had been taking shelter in Las Vegas, where there was electricity and enough food and clothes to get by, thanks to Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, which gave Ian hope that more help was on the way. But Jeff was a total skeptic, and he doubted that they were going to help them. Days turned into weeks, and thanks to the makeshift kitchen run by Jenna and Tara, they were able to provide enough food for everyone. But there was still no word from FEMA. Evie, still worried about her husband, pulled Ian aside and told him that her husband had been receiving treatment for a mental illness, and she was worried that his story about FEMA was just a fantasy. Not long after, they got a report that 2 white trucks were heading their way. Ian's hopes soared, but it wasn't FEMA. It was a SWAT team sent by Masterson. Jeff and the other soldiers were on high alert as Ian went to the front gate to try to de-escalate the situation. To his surprise, Ian recognized the SWAT leader, Lieutenant Javi. Javi told Ian that they were there because of a report from the other hunter who ran away that one of the residents of his homestead had killed someone. It was clear that Masterson had been waiting for this moment to get his revenge on Ian. Lieutenant Javi was just about to tell his men to stand down and call off the whole thing when Masterson stepped in. He wasn't having it. He was trying to get Javi to arrest Ian and everyone else at the homestead. When he realized Javi wasn't going to budge, Masterson went ballistic. In a fit of pure rage, he took out his handgun and fired a shot, which was his way of starting a firefight.
Javi, you gotta stop this before someone gets hurt.
Ceasefire! Hold your fire!
In an instant, the peaceful scene turned into a chaotic battlefield. The sound of gunfire echoed across the homestead, and in the chaos, Ian was hit. The second Jeff realized Ian had been shot, he immediately ordered his men to stop shooting and ran to Ian. Javi also ordered his team to stand down. Medics rushed to the scene and took Ian, who was unconscious, to the medical clinic. A month later, a miracle happened. After being in a coma and going through critical moments, Ian finally woke up. Jenna had been by his side every single day, praying that he would get better. The moment he woke up, he looked around and asked what had happened while he was gone. Jenna told him that she had let everyone into their homestead because she believed that by sticking together, they could all get through this. Ian knew that his wife had a good heart and was only trying to do the right thing, so he supported her decision. He knew he had been given a second chance at life and that he would always be there for his family no matter what. At the end of the film, Georgie was in her room drawing. It was chilling because the drawings weren't just simple pictures. They were a series of events that would happen in the future. It was as if Georgie had visions of things to come, and the drawings were a warning that a much bigger threat was on the horizon.